Um, sure, I don't disagree with it. I just want to point out that our capacity to increase our knowledge goes beyond just empirical evidence. There is inference, logic, deductive, and all that sort of jazz that's really important. So even though we might not be able to empirically observe multiple universes, it is possible to logically infer they exist. And if they don't violate the rule of, logic or contradiction, then at the very least we can assume that it's possible. Simulation theories always have a flaw in that they don't explain complexity the same way God does, because then you end up with the same issue of uh, how do you explain the universe that then leads to the simulation. So I am very against the simulation theory, but not against necessarily against the multiverse theory, while I do, however, acknowledge that there is no empirical evidence for it.
So good, glad to know that you're not a Karl Popper fan, and you seem more like a logician than an empiricist. I'm not trying to put you in a bucket, not trying to like pigeonhole you, just trying to understand where we're coming from here. Because I have three goals in this. The first is I want to hopefully learn something. The second, I want to hopefully teach something, and hey, maybe be entertaining and informative to the audience as well. Um, so I want to say one more thing. I think it's very important we define the term God here because agnostics will go crazy otherwise because they think they can sidestep the whole issue by just making it a rhetorical thing. When I am saying, "Hey, I believe in God," I am saying I believe that there is a sentience responsible for the existence of the observable universe. Are you okay with us using that definition going forward? Like I assume that's what you're okay with.
Sentience, responsible, I intelligently, with intent, or no?
Um, I don't know that I could actually prove intent or even know, knowing the mind of the creator. I mean, I think it is kind of. Let me put it this way: I'm certain, or let me. I am firm on the existence of God. God's nature is something that I wrestle with. A God of history is a very sort of different thing than a creator God. To believe that God created the universe is a very different thing from God created the universe for us is a different thing from, hey, God's interfering with things in order to make, answer my prayers. Those are three very different statements.
I understand.
Okay. I just want to be clear because, agnosticism is a thing, it's a cop out in my mind, but I just want to fall into that trap. So you reject simulation theory outright. I mean, I want to know why that is.
Because it doesn't answer the question. It's like passing the buck. Sure, you can say the universe is simulated, and there are ways to justify that. But the problem arises with you not then justifying the simulation. So you're just passing the buck. Sure, you can say it is simulated, but then what about the prime? Not prime, but the one that's not simulated. So at the end of the game, sorry, at the end of the day, you have to answer that question. So whether or not it's simulated is irrelevant to me. I do think it's very unlikely, but um, it doesn't answer the question. That's my biggest issue with it. It could be true. It doesn't answer the question,
Okay.
though.
Well, this might shortcut a lot of this debate right now, but let's say that we did live in a simulation. Okay, that we were part, that the universe as we exist was part of the equivalent of a thesis project by some being in some universe with laws of physics which are causal that we cannot comprehend because it is well and way beyond us. Would the individual who created the universe as part of, for whatever means that they had within that other causal universe in a completely different state that we aren't aware of, would you consider that to be God?
No, not at all.
And I would. So I guess we've arrived at one of the fundamental disagreements here. Okay. So for me, if even if God follows causal rules in and of themselves that are completely beyond our comprehension, that doesn't that doesn't destroy the notion of God as a primary creator of our universe. But you insist that not only did God create everything that we exist, but that God fundamentally came into existence of their own volition simultaneously. So you've have a definition of God whereby causality cannot exist outside of the nature of God itself.
Yeah, the definition of God that I am con- ha- contesting is the one where God creates existence, what exists, like the observable universe. God, with intelligence, designed the universe in such a way that it exists. I disagree with that fundamentally. Um, that specific definition of God. I'm sure you can, put God on something more powerful and more unexplainable, but to me, that's not the same creationist God. To me, that's just slapping the label of God without really having the necessary and sufficient conditions for godhood, so to speak. Although I do understand omniscience, sorry, not omniscience, omnipotence is limited by logic. However, I would say for God to exist, God must be all powerful within limits of logic, must be intelligent, must have created the universe, and all these things. I absolutely disagree with all of those notions, but that's what I am um, contending, contesting.
Uh,
Sorry.
it seems like it seems like you're applying rules of our own universe and saying that they must apply beyond the realms of our own universe. Like, do you believe that conservation of mass and energy must apply even to metaphysics? Like that the universe coming into existence as the observable universe that we currently reside in, that whatever metaphysical rules we do not are yet not yet aware of, which we know there must be rules that we are not yet aware of, that they must also obey the conservation of mass and energy.
Well, the thing is, there's no way to know about an unknown. You know what I mean? You can only infer based on what you do know. And what we do know is that these rules are immutable and they don't get violated at all. And it's beyond just energy and matter, it's a conservation of information. And also, we don't really ever observe or can't even justify something coming into existence, which is something I fundamentally disagree with. I don't think you can bring anything into existence. I don't think God caused existence. I don't think existence can be caused. I would say existence is a prerequisite to causality, not something that, you know, comes after it or whatever.
But then doesn't if that's true, then doesn't your argument against God coming into existence of its own volition then apply to the universe? Because if we
Yeah,
live in a causal universe and a causal universe exists, then the and it always has to have had a cause in order to exist. The same notion you're using to
yes.
reject God applies to the universe itself.